Hi, my name is Mandy Kern and I am the Program Specialist at the Kansas Wetlands Education Center. This video will serve as a kind of for your unit on adaptations. Some of the best adaptations happen in birds, looking at the different types of bills they have, and so the food that they might eat, and the different types of feet that they might have. So are their feet designed for swimming? Are they designed for perching, capturing prey, maybe running or walking through grass? And so the physical characteristics of birds can tell us a lot. And so the Kansas Wetlands Education Center is positioned at Cheyenne Bottoms, which is the largest inland marsh in the United States. And so that's really cool that it's right here in the middle of Kansas. It's a 41,000 acre marsh, and it's a very important place for migratory birds. So enjoy the kind of the talk on birds and the type of bills they have. All right, we are going to meet a series of birds, and on your paper, I want you to write the name of each bird and then pause when I show the bird and write a hypothesis as to what you think the bird eats based on its bill. So we're going to start this first bird, very important to Cheyenne Bottoms and the Kansas Wetlands Education Center. It's actually the bird on our logo. This is kind of our mascot bird. And so if you look at its bill, it's very long, up curved. Pause the video and tell me what you think this bill is used for. So this is a shorebird, and I'll talk about a lot of shorebirds today, which means that often they'll migrate from shore to shore and travel long distances. Some of these birds, thousands and thousands of miles to get to their nesting grounds. But again, Cheyenne Bottoms is a very important spot for a lot of these shorebirds, and we'll have several thousand shorebirds pass through each spring and fall. The American avocet will actually stay, some will nest here, breed here, and spend their summers here. But this long up-curved bill is good for what they do is they'll sweep it from side to side, scooping up different prey, usually insects, maybe small crustaceans in the water. A favorite food, we've got a midge fly. This is the adult, and its larva we call bloodworms. And in the month of June, we have a statistic saying we can find 64,000 bloodworms in a square meter, so a 3 by 3 foot box. We can find 64,000 bloodworms. And so all those shorebirds that pass through here, it's a very important food source for them. So we'll often see large swarms of the adults, and then after they mate and lay their eggs, they'll die, usually in large piles and swarms. And then the shorebirds will feed off of those that larva in the water. And so they may put just the little upturned part of their bill in the shallow part of the water. They may use it to kind of probe and pull some things out, but they're often seen kind of going back and forth, kind of scraping that bill over the water. All right, our Kansas state bird, the western meadowlark. Pause the video and record what you think this bill would be used to feed with. So in Kansas, we have both an eastern and a western meadowlark. They're both very identical in appearance, and they've got the V-shaped black mark on their neck, yellow chest, and the only way to tell them apart is by their call. The western meadowlark, people like to say it's saying, "Kansas is beautiful," whereas the eastern meadowlark has a shorter kind of two-whistle call that says, "Spring is here." But both meadowlark species, and so this one's our western meadowlark, they'll walk through the grass, kind of stirring up insects, and so they can use their bill to maybe pull some insects, spiders, maybe some worms out of the ground and kind of probe and pull those, but they'll also eat grains and seeds that they find on the ground. A favorite that we have here at Cheyenne Bottoms is called the Wilson's phalarope. So pause and tell me what you think that needle-like bill is used for. So a shorebird, the Wilson's phalarope, will travel in large flocks, and so they'll arrive with lots of their friends, and what they'll do is they'll actually spin around in these tight little circles, making these little cyclones or vortex. And what that will do is that will kind of suck things up off of the bottom of the bottoms or their water source and pull up insects to the top of the water, and then they can just kind of gently peck those insects off of the surface of the water. And so lots of teamwork working together. One of the insects that they might be feeding off of, this is an adult mayfly. Their larvae, or their babies, look like this. These feather-like frilly things, these are their gills on their abdomen, so that's how they breathe and how a lot of our aquatic insects breathe. But those little frilly gills are really pretty to see when we capture them. Our mayflies are also really important bioindicators, meaning we can use life to indicate the quality of a water source. So if we find a mayfly, sometimes that's a good indicator that our water is clean, because they don't tolerate polluted water and lay their eggs. The adults will lay their eggs in a nice clean water source. So we like to find those mayfly and mayfly larvae here at Cheyenne Bottoms. Let's move to another grassland bird. This is a lesser prairie chicken. So take a look at that bill and let me know what you think that bill would be used for. Here at Cheyenne Bottoms, we have the greater prairie chicken in our area, and one of our favorite things to do in the spring is we actually offer lek tours. A lek is their breeding ground, and where the males will go and they'll do this booming, making the sound with they'll puff up their cheek pouches and make a booming sound, and they'll dance and strut on that lek, and they're trying to attract a female. And the female will pick the male that has the best dance. Other males might fight with each other, and it's a really impressive sight to see. So something that if you get the chance someday, go out and find those. But these birds will spend their days walking through the grasslands. But if you'll notice the bill, how it's a little bit different than that meadowlark, which is going to have a very similar habitat in grassland. And when we do our lek tours, there are meadowlarks all around also. And so these prairie chickens, they're going to feed on grains and insects, small insects like the meadowlark would also, but they're more curved. Sharp bill might be better for crushing nuts, acorns. They actually will also eat maybe twigs, flowers, leaves from a tree. So they're a very omnivorous bird, eating both meat sources like those insects, but also different plant sources as well. Moving back to the water, I have what's called a northern shoveler. And I want to get that bill up really close there to the camera. Pause and record what you think northern shovelers or duck-like birds eat. So if you'll notice, this bird has a lot. You can see that those hairs kind of hanging from the bill. It's called a northern shoveler because its bill is very large, shovel-like. But what a duck will eat, and this kind of duck is actually, it's called a dabbling duck, meaning when they feed, they'll put their heads in the water and they'll stick their tails up, maybe out of the water, but they do not dive. A diving duck would go down to the bottom of the water source. And so a dabbling duck, they just kind of feed from the surface of the water. And what ducks will do is they'll scoop up that water, and then they're a filter. These little hairs kind of work as like a sieve, and so the water will drain out from around their bills, but then if they're feeding on vegetation generally, and so things like grasses, sedges, pond weeds, and they'll take it and the water will come out and they'll grind their bills together and kind of do that. They might also pick up some insects, maybe some small crustaceans in the water when they do that as well, but this bill is generally used as a filter or a sieve. I am sure that you're familiar with woodpeckers. This one is what we call a red-headed woodpecker. So pause and record what you think their bill is used for. So our woodpeckers often store and cache food, especially in the winter. And so they're storing maybe nuts, different acorns, hiding them in holes and crevices in trees. Red-headed woodpeckers are more omnivorous than other kinds of woodpeckers. They have a wide variety and range of food, and they'll eat insects, they'll eat worms, grasshoppers, but they'll also eat berries, nuts, like we talked about. They may also eat bark, occasionally eggs from other birds that they find in nests. But what's really unique about a woodpecker, since they're pecking and tapping at that wood, they have a tongue that actually protects their brain. So their tongue actually wraps around the back of their head and cushions their brain as they thump and peck at the wood to hide and cache their food. This bird is a favorite of mine. This is a common nighthawk. They've got a teeny tiny bill, very large head. So pause and write down what you think this bill would be used for. So a common nighthawk, and our nighthawks are crepuscular, meaning they come out at dusk and dawn. They'll feed during the day and they'll feed at night, especially around lighted areas, so light posts. What they're doing is they're swooping and flying and catching flying insects. And so even though this bill looks teeny, teeny, tiny, they can open their mouth, gaping wide mouth, and they swoop and they catch those flying insects. But what's really neat about these birds is they also have kind of a booming mating ritual that you can hear through their wings. The males can flex their wings when they fly, and especially when they're swooping and diving, flex their wings and air will rush through their primary feathers and it will make a sound. And so they've got a peet, peet call that's very distinguishable and you can hear when you're outside, especially at night in the summer. And then you can hear that sound rushing through their wings. But these guys are going to eat flying insects like grasshoppers, moths, but also swarms of mosquitoes. So these are good guys. You want them in your backyard. So look for common nighthawks. This bird is called a long-billed curlew. So we started with that American avocet, which had that very long curved up bill. This one is curved down. So take a minute, record what you think this bird might eat. This is one of our larger shorebirds, long-billed curlew, and they've got that very long, curved down bill. You'll see these birds walking very quickly on mud flats, and they're using that bill to probe. And they can actually use that to get down into burrows, maybe like a crayfish chimney, and put their bill in there, but then they'll also probe on the mud flats, pulling out different insects. They're going to eat larger prey. So when you think about, we've got a lot of adult mosquitoes, not mosquitoes, adult dragonflies in our area. Their larvae, we call them naiads. So this is a dragonfly naiad, and they live in the water and they're aquatic, and so they might pick those out. Long-billed curlew might also eat a frog, maybe a small rodent, but they're also known for eating eggs of other birds and maybe nestlings of other birds as well. Here's our great horned owl, and other owl species are known as nocturnal birds of prey. Take a minute. What do you think that bill is used for eating? We've got that very sharp, curved bill. And if you could see the talons on those birds, I'm sure you know that they are known for catching prey, eating rodents. Great horned owls especially are very aggressive hunters. They may eat larger things. They'll eat mice and rats, but if they can catch a rabbit, maybe a skunk, possum, they'll eat what they can get. Owls are very silent flyers. You can see these large eye cavities. Their eyes are very good at bringing in lots of light, especially in the dark. So they're very good night hunters, and they can capture that prey, and they'll eat them and swallow them in large chunks. And an activity we like to do here at the Kansas Wetland Education Center is kind of be a crime scene investigator. And we'll dissect these owl pellets. And so what they'll do is when they eat their food, they can't digest the fur, the hair, bones, feathers, or scales if they were to eat a fish. And so every so often they need to regurgitate and basically vomit up the parts that they can't digest. And we can break those apart and we can figure out what they ate. And we often use barn owl pellets because barn owls live in barns or other structures, and so their pellets are easy to find because they've got kind of that home where they're spitting them out in kind of the same spot each time. And so we will find moles and voles and different kinds of mice, and so it's really fun to kind of put those bones together, articulate their skeleton, and make that creature and figure out and identify what it was. The bird we're going to end on is called a Sandhill Crane. Let's take a look at that really large bill. This is one of our larger birds that will migrate through Cheyenne Bottoms. What do you think that bill is used for eating? It's a very large bird. Sandhill cranes, very good numbers. I love hearing them fly over. They've got a very distinctive cackling call that we can identify when they fly over in large flocks. But the Sandhill crane has a relative called the whooping crane. It's very rare. It's endangered. But Cheyenne Bottoms and to the south of us just a little bit, Quivira National Wildlife Refuge, they're a very important habitat for these birds and these cranes. But a sandhill crane, they're omnivores. They'll eat insects, roots of insects, or roots of aquatic plants. Might eat a frog or a lizard, maybe a small rodent, nestling birds and from other species. But often we'll see them in the bottoms, maybe resting overnight. And so the best time to see them is early morning or kind of at dusk when they fly back in. They'll spend their day feeding in pastures, maybe eating grain and different seeds that are on the ground. And then they'll come to the bottoms to rest. And then in the morning, they'll have built up their energy sources so that they can continue on that migration and fly until they reach their nesting grounds up in Canada and in the Arctic Circle. I want to share with you some of the adaptations of one of our classroom animals and one of our animal ambassadors at the Kansas Wetlands Education Center. This is Pip. Pip is an American kestrel. And a couple of the adaptations that he has, one is a lot of birds and a lot of animals display what's called sexual dimorphism, meaning that the male and the female of the species look different, have differences. This is a male American kestrel, and one of their differences is the really pretty slate blue head and the slate blue wings. The females don't have that coloration on them, and a lot of times female birds tend to be really dull brown to camouflage and blend in with their surroundings. That allows them to sit on their nest, incubate the eggs, and not be seen or spotted by predators. Kestrels nest in cavities, maybe in a rock ledge or in the crack of a building. They like to be hidden and they'll go inside to lay their eggs, but that's one of the differences between the male and the females. Now the kestrel is the smallest falcon in North America, and they are a bird of prey. You'll notice I'm wearing gloves. They have a very sharp beak. I can feel the beak when he tries to peck at my fingers. But they prefer wide open spaces. And so grasslands, you'll see them often when you drive in the countryside. They'll be perched on maybe a fence post or the electricity lines, and they will spot their prey. So as we've been talking about bills and beaks and what a kestrel might eat, and so with their very sharp bill, as a bird of prey, they are eating animals. They're carnivorous, and so a kestrel might feed on insects, maybe a grasshopper, a cicada, a beetle. They may eat a frog or a snake. At the center, we feed Pip 2 small mice every day, so small mammals. And but a special adaptation they have. See if he'll let us show you. Their bill is very sharp, and they have an indentation in that bill, and that's called a tomial tooth. And when they capture their prey, it's very sharp. They can sever the vertebrae of whatever they're eating, and the death will be instant. Another adaptation that the kestrel has, one to protect it, you can see on the back of his head, it's called an ocellus. And what those are, the 2 black spots on the back of his head serve like a fake eye, and so it looks like they have eyes in the back of their head, and that would be alarming to a predator maybe sneaking up on it. And because this is a small falcon, a small bird of prey, it could be eaten by a larger bird of prey, a hawk, a larger falcon, and so that ocellus is an adaptation it has as a protection. When they fly, they use their tail, and they can kind of flap their tail to allow them to continue to hover in place while they're searching for their prey. Kestrels are diurnal, meaning they are day hunters. They come out and they hunt during the day. Another adaptation is they can see ultraviolet light, meaning they can see trails, like urine trails of different mammals or mice, and see where they might be kind of nesting or hiding. They might also, when they capture their prey, they can cache it or hide it in like clumps of grass or around like tree posts, and so when hunting gets scarce, they can kind of go to those hiding spots and eat what they left behind. The last adaptation I want to talk about is the bands that come down from their eye. He has one on each side of his eye, and those are called malar stripes. It's the same concept of when football players put black under their eye, and other animals have this. A cheetah has a malar stripe, and what that does is when they fly and they're hovering over the grasslands, especially when they're hunting during the day, it absorbs the sunlight instead of glaring in their eye. It keeps the glare out, the black will absorb that light, and so that they can see well during the day when they fly. So those are just a few of the adaptations of our American kestrel friend, Pip.